Hey, you only feel like a failure because you've categorized your failures the wrong way. I promise you, if we dig into this today, I'm gonna give you the 6 levels to understand specifically how to break down your failures. Because yes, we all fail. And you've heard the same statements of you gotta fail forward, or there's no failing, only learning, right? We've all heard that, but no one's broke down how exactly that makes sense, how to apply that concept to your life. So we're gonna talk about that today. We're gonna make sure it kind of becomes something where you can actually make shifts with that information from a failure the right way, make the right progressive steps moving forwards so you don't get lost in a shuffle. Because a lot of us, we end up failing at something, we feel a certain way, we don't know what to do with it, so we end up stepping ourselves back from what we wanted to get done in life and making great excuses to stay small. You're being honest with yourself, there's probably some place in time where you had this mentality to go do something, but what you found yourself doing was taking a step, not doing too well, and making really good excuses to stay small, to not approach it, to not actually pursue that anymore. And it's only because at some point you didn't categorize things properly. You step back and go, okay, I didn't learn this properly, let me go ahead and find a way to step back so I don't subject myself to the pain anymore. You stop learning. For me, when I was a kid, I was given away at 3 years old in a foster care system, and I endured a lot of different things from the age of 3 until 15. And so at 15 years old, I had this experience where I tried football for a couple of years and wasn't very good. I'm telling you this because it's going to make sense when it comes to failure, right? So in this situation, 11 years in the system, I get adopted, I play football 1 year, I suck, I fail at it. I try again, I try my second year, I suck, I fail at it. And I was a skinny, little kid on the field. I was trash. I wasn't good at the game. I couldn't catch very well, couldn't tackle very well, couldn't block very well, couldn't do very much. And inside, I really felt worthless. I wanted to hide under a rock from the rest of the world. I tried something that I really had intentions of being great at, found I wasn't good at it, I failed at it, so I said, let me just pull myself back. I made the excuse of I'm a foster kid. I'm not supposed to do very much. I'm not supposed to be great at this game, and I really pulled myself away, and what ended up happening was I went through this journey. I went through a journey I'm gonna talk about in a moment, but I went through this journey that progressed me up towards a different level. Right? I ended up getting a college football scholarship after being one of the worst of my team, playing in the NFL, being on TV, cast for TV shows. I'm a successful speaker. I travel the world and talk now, and all of it came because of what I learned about how to rearrange failure. And in fact, as we cover this today, I'm going to talk to you about how at that moment in time, or actually now, I feel confident. I can take on anything. It's weird that I will step in and do things that don't make sense to even people closest to me. And it's not weird to me, it's weird to them. They're like, how do you keep doing this? And I go, well, you know what? Because I love my life. I love trying new things. I've found that when I fail, I learn lessons. The lessons teach me things I can apply to the next stage of my life. And when you approach life like that, you live a life. You don't endure life. You kind of float through stuff. You live a life. And that's the whole reason we're here, is to live as a verb, to do great things. So here's what took place in my life. I got to this point where I realized I had to have people pour into me, right? You got to have somebody pour into you that gives you insight, gives you a little bit of we'll call it push, a little motivation to move to the next step. For me, I had an adoptive mom and I had coaches that poured into me in moments when I failed. A lot of us, we have situations where we fail and we go, I don't want to do this very much, or we kind of pull ourselves back, and people try to lean in and try to help us, but we go, no, this is why it took place. Craft a great experience of what you think took place and a great excuse, and then what happens is, well, you stay small and they just go, okay, well, I guess I can't help you, because the excuse was one that you crafted specifically to have them stop asking questions. So you got to find some people, and what worked was me stepping in and doing more work. That's a big piece of what I call dark work. The dark work is something you got to get done. It's what you do in the dark that allows you to shine in the light. But what the dark work is interesting, and we're going to cover these 6 in a minute. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm going to get these 6 broken down. I want you to understand where we're at right now. And for me, when I was sitting in this situation, I remember sitting in a classroom, these 2 girls talking to each other that snapped me out of this reality of going down a pathway of accepting my excuses, and I decided to lean back in and really become internally a person who desired to be great again, who was okay with going after failure. And here's where I stepped into applying myself and learning these steps that I'm gonna teach you right now. So the first thing to understand is there's a top and a bottom level. I call the learning line what separates them. In the middle of these 3 on top and 3 on bottom, there's a stage where you will learn. If you find yourself above or put problems or situations or failures above the line, we don't learn as much or as quickly. Now, the first top part of it, we'll call it the very top one, it's called abject failure. It's a type of failure that we experience where we feel like the whole world's, it's off. Like everything's falling apart. We can't get any better. There's no way to fix this thing. It's the end, right? And for a lot of us, we have situations that we believe are abject, but they're really not abject. They're not the end of the world. We just put them in that category. So what happens is maybe I lose a relationship, or I get hurt, or something happens. But what I end up doing is finding myself in a situation where I believe it's unfixable. I believe nothing in this world that we're in right now can fix this. It's the end. So what I do is I say, because of that, because of its pain, I don't want to face it anymore. I step myself backwards and end up finding myself in a situation where I don't want to look at it anymore. I don't want to face it. I don't want to talk about it with anybody else. It's the end. I can't fix it. Why even talk about it? I don't learn. That's why it's above the learning line. Now, this abject one is one that we actually don't realize we use more than we should, and you'll understand why as we progress through this. The second one, we'll call it second level down, is going to be what's called structural failure. A structural failure is a failure that takes place that is going to be hard to fix, but you know it can be fixed. It's really going to be difficult. If the business isn't doing very well, I got served with eviction papers. Happened to me when I had my first gym business. It was a structural failure. It was fixable, but man, was it going to be a climb to get that done. It was going to be painful. And so what I do is in these moments, most people go, it's too hard. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to face it. It's going to be so hard to figure out. You know what? It is easier to just walk away from this and start fresh than it is to fix this thing that's broken. And we do this. A lot of us have things that we know we could fix. We just go, it's going to be too much. I don't want to lean back into that and deal with that and fix that and handle that. So you know what? I'm walking away. We walk away from it. But here's a big piece is we always regret it because we know we could have fixed it. So it becomes a non-learning situation because I don't want to face it due to the fact that I'm going to feel a certain way. I'm going to feel a little bit more failure. I'm going to feel like a little bit of shame. I'm going to feel like a loser. So I don't face it. I don't go back into it. I don't learn from it because it was a structural, very hard failure. Number 3, the last one above the learning line is called glorious failure. This is where we try something and it blows up in our face. 100% we go, that was a bad one. I don't know what took place, how it took place. You know what? It's the reason we think about people who are walking away from a problem, smoking a cigarette or a stogie going, whatever, let the house burn down. They're just walking away in the distance. I'm not even dealing with it. And this happens because the understanding of it or having to face it overall is just there's so many things that went wrong. I would have to go crazy sifting through the crazy to find out what specifically it was. And I don't feel like giving it that energy. So you know what? Peace, deuces, they should say. And I walk on. So now I just press it in my life and I go, I don't exactly know what the next stage should be, but I'm still stuck here. And we find ourselves in these top 3, not learning very much. And because of that, there's that statement that says, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. We go back in and we repeat history in other areas. We don't do it immediately. We do it way later because we don't want to feel that pain again. So we postpone our success. And when we do have an effort in the next direction, we fail just like we failed the first time. So you really have to look at these different situations, at least the top 3, and go, man, do I put problems here? Are there things that are scooting themselves up too high in this area of failure that should go down below? Here's the ones we learn from. Here's the ones that matter the most. And I believe if you can take anything, take these 3 away with you. The first below the learning one is called the common failure. Common failure is essentially why the apology was created. I'm sorry, I messed up, my fault, my bad, they say, right? This is one where you go, okay, I messed up. It's acknowledging there was a mistake, right? It's the first piece because on the top ones, sometimes we don't acknowledge our ownership in it. That's a big piece. If you go to abject or structural or glorious, we don't always take ownership in that. We just go, that's tough, it all worked, I don't know what went wrong, and I walk away. Whereas in common failure, I go, I messed up. Essentially, the moment you say I messed up, you go, well, if I can own I messed up, I know that I messed up. There must be an area that I'm aware I messed up. So doing that and going, hey, I'm sorry, I apologize, it won't happen again, that's big. Because now I can go, I apologize for the action, I know what I did, I won't do it again. I learned. Now, a common failure can also happen in career, it can happen in your health, it can happen in your relationship. I messed up, I didn't call when I was on the way home, my apologies, I should have called, right? Common failure, we just a simple one. We sometimes don't do this. We put things too high and we say it's a structural. Well, I'm just tired of you asking where I'm at all the time. And it's hard to face that and tell someone where you're at. But if you're honest about it, you probably should tell somebody where you're at if they're worried about it, right? So it's a common failure, but you learn from it, you can progress forward. Now, these next 2 are the most critical ones to understand. The 5th one, called down towards the bottom, second and last, is what's called version failure. Now, version failure is very interesting in the fact that you are trying to do the best you can, put the best you can out there now. You're not holding, not waiting, you do the best you can, but when something happens and you realize it wasn't perfect, you don't cast something way too high into abject or structural. You go, yeah, the relationship failed or the business failed or I didn't lose the weight. I get that, but was there a version of me showing up in that manner that wasn't operating the way it should have? Was it a version of this information, a version of myself, a version of the relationship that because of this situation, I didn't do well? And if it's a version, just like I have, an iPhone 13 here, there's a new version that comes out based off the information from the first one not being great or where there were holes and gaps to fill. So in 14 was created. In time, there'll be an iPhone 17, 21, right? It keeps on moving. And the idea is for us to step in and go, in our lives, are there situations where we failed at something that we can step in and go, okay, I understand that. What can I learn about this version so I can make the next attempt in the new version, right? The newer aspiration, the newer progression of the information you have, because this is just a lesson to be learned. So I failed, I got it, that version failed. I didn't fail as a human, the version of me maybe, the version of what I do failed, but can I take the insights and try again? Now that's a great way to operate, but the best one I believe is what I operate with every day is expected failure. The very bottom of this level is expected area of failure. I expect myself to fail at something. On this right here, I expect to stumble over words, to bumble through things, to not be very perfect at how I speak because I'm not rocking a script. I'm just talking to you as a human being. And in that process, I know I will make mistakes. I will falter. I will fail. I will do something that's not perfect. But a lot of us because of the possibility of failing, don't take a step in the first place. Now, I play professional sports, played football, and I know that we sometimes frame the failure as who we are, but there's something unique that happens in sports, especially for football. We play the game, we practice, and in some aspect too, and what happens is either I practice or I play, but I come into a room, I put a screen up, we put film of yourself up or myself up on the screen, and we watch all the areas we messed up. Purposely, we want to purposely find the areas to improve. I am expecting that I failed somewhere, so the failure itself is immediately a lesson. I mean, when you go to sports and you practice, yeah, coach is yelling at you all day long. Do this, run there, you're doing too slow, hit that here, focus on this, make this move, whatever it is. But they're giving you the insights in real time and you're not failing, right? You're just having an expected moment of not being that great. But here's the cool thing. That is a moment where you're purposely learning. Purposely, you're trying to improve, trying to get better, trying to get some more information. And that mentality progresses you down the pipeline towards being phenomenal at something else later on. Unlike many people who try things, don't do very well, they put it too high, and I'm not good at football. If I'd have said that and left it at that, I'd never have played in the NFL. But I said, you know what? I expect to go and try something and not be great. I expect to learn how to catch a football from taking the reps, dropping a ball and going, okay, I should have looked it in more, grabbed the ball differently, positioned my body differently, all those things that you see. So the idea is no matter what you pursue in your life, you're going to run into situations where you fail. You try something and it doesn't go the greatest, you fall on your face. It's part of the process. But as you pursue those things, look at every single moment as feedback, as an expected failure, as you try something new and improve and improve and improve. And along this journey, don't throw things too high up the scale or put them above the learning line, because then you don't learn, so you don't progress. If you don't progress, you won't take the steps in the first place, because you'll know to yourself in your mind, why am I doing this? I'm not getting better. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not progressing. So we end up falling short and staying small. And for me, I realized that a lot of people end up doing this. And here's the process of doing this. I'm going to tell you completely honest. This is how I heard it one time in college. My college coach kind of gave it to me pretty straightforward, but in a cool metaphor. It was everybody, not just myself. I'm sure it was me at one point, just myself, but it's kind of like going into life and going, look, you have to be working towards something, but you have to take the crap. And then once the crap hits you, take a step back up. He tells a story about this farmer had a mule, a donkey, right? And this mule was kind of a little bit lame on the back end of its life, wasn't doing very much. So he figures, hey, I got this well. It's a well that he has to fill up because it's not going too well. Pun intended or not intended, but it worked out. And I got to fill this well. So he figures I'll throw the donkey down there and then I'll just put the dirt on there because I'm going to fill the well anyway. So this way it kind of buries a donkey and it's all kind of taken care of. So he throws a live donkey into the well. I don't know if you want to talk about whether it's humane or whatever took place, but this just took place, right? So what he does is he puts it down and he shovels a pile of dirt in there. Shovels some dirt in, no big deal. Shoving some dirt in, no big deal. Shovel some dirt in, no big deal. And what happens is, all of a sudden, after doing this for, a couple hours, the dang donkey jumps out and bolts off into the distance, never to be seen again. And you go, what happened here? What was the situation? Well, what happened is every time the farmer threw some dirt in, the donkey didn't let the dirt bury on top of its back. It shook it off and it stepped up. Then something shoveled on top of it again and it shook it off and it stepped back up. And over and over and over, as crap hit the donkey or dirt hit the donkey, it shook it off and stood back up. And it kept creating more and more progress on top of the ground. It used the dirt shovel on it as steps to climb up, and the more it got up, eventually it took off in a distance. A lot of us have the same thing take place. We feel buried. We feel like we don't have the ability to succeed at something, and all we do is get crap shoveled on us all day long. But the reality is if you can take a step up, shake it off and take a step up every day when it happens, you pursue something greater in life. You find yourself in a situation to run off into the distance for your own life. So start looking at your life and going, what's going on? What am I experiencing? And how can I get to the point of no longer having these failures take place? How can I get to the point of not feeling like a failure and actually feeling more powerful, more confident? Because every time you take this step, every time you progress to the next stage, you feel vastly more confident. You feel like you can take on the world in a way no one else has, and that's the key to life. In my opinion, the key is taking a step, not doing great, learning, shaking it off, and stepping back up. So make sure you focus on doing that in your life. And if you enjoyed this video, watch this one right here. One of my favorites. I made it specifically to follow this one. Make sure you tune into it. Outside of that, take care, and as always, do the dark work to make shift happen.